I'm Zonile Ngubeni and you're watching Joburg Today.
Gauteng Premier David Makhura recently delivered his State of the Province address. He promised to get tough on corruption, but said nothing about e-tolls. What does this all mean? We ask Wayne Duvenage from Outa. I'm Peter Ndoro, and this is For the Record. So Premier David Makhura delivered the State of the Province address, and he's promised to work hard on dealing with corruption. Do you believe him?
No, we don't, quite frankly. And the reason we say that, Peter, is that if the Premier and others in authority were serious about tackling corruption, you would see a lot more accountability. And you just have to look at the last decade of mess down in Mfuleni and allowing sewage spills into the Vaal River, allowing the municipality to collapse, and yet nothing happens. And there's this intervention after intervention, but nothing really happens. The corruption on the PPE scandal, yes, 1 or 2 fall people, but nothing really has happened. Tshwane, as a city, as a metropolitan within the Gauteng province, there was a rush because of political issues to deal with administration, only to have to be thrown out of court again. So too many blunders take place. Too much is happening when it comes to gross corruption that is taking place and little accountability. And that's why we just don't believe.
How do you think this corruption is allowed to happen? Is it negligence, incompetence, not knowing, or is it actually allowing?
It's largely allowing, and you have a political party in power that is fraught with corruption, with a lot of clear indication that it's difficult to fight corruption when you're involved, when your own party is closely linked to it. And then, of course, we see too much incompetence that is allowed. People are put into positions that are well above their ability to manage. Running cities and metros is like running multi-billion rand businesses. For us to find people that are not qualified in certain positions of accounting and engineering and so forth, it's no wonder you have to close the M2 for 9 months to a year and fix it, because you're just not maintaining, you're not looking ahead, you're not planning properly, and that's part of the problem.
There are divisions of authority. You've got the NPA, you've got the executive. Is there a disconnect? Is it that the executive have to take people to the NPA, or is the NPA swimming against the tide? What's happening?
Well, the NPA is totally overwhelmed and undercapacitated from years of being hollowed out. So that's one problem. I think their mindset is right. Their will to do good is there. But what they need now is not a lot of allegations and half-baked information. If they're going to be effective, they need facts when it comes to corruption. They don't need hearsay or what looks like corruption. So it's important that the authorities, civil society, whoever's laying charges, gives them the meaningful information for which they can act a lot quicker on.
All right. So you're not convinced there's political will to root out corruption?
I don't believe so. Not at the provincial level, not at most local government levels, and at the national level, there's some attempt, but there's a struggle.
Business is affected, citizens are affected by corruption. With the kind of corruption that's taking place in Gauteng at the moment, what do you see as the effect on business?
Well, it's detrimental, because businesses operate in a space of efficiency. Businesses operate when things happen, when you can get your vehicles licensed quickly, when you can do business in an efficient manner, and that's not what's happening in government, both at the provincial and local government level. To have water problems, to just have potholes, road infrastructure breakdown, just one traffic light out sets people back hours sometimes in getting to work and goods to the market. These are the problems of an inefficient city. These are the problems of an inefficient government.
Yeah, well, I suppose monies that should be going to schools and so on and so forth being paid to inflated prices on supplies.
And Peter, that's the biggest problem, is we could have got the Gauteng Freeway project at double the kilometres, half the price in other words. The amount of money we pay to build schools, infrastructure, that's the biggest worry, is that there are just too many middlemen that want their cut, and it just takes longer to do business, and it's far more expensive. We're uncompetitive as a country as a result of this.
All right, and I suppose PPEs, we should have predicted that chances are there was going to be a lot of corruption.
There was always going to be, especially in a rushed emergency purchase process when the barriers of purchasing are lowered somewhat, hoping that people are going to be honest. Well, that's when it just went wild.
Let's talk about e-tolls.
Yeah.
End of last year, the collection agency contract was extended. Why do you think that happened?
Well, it happened because there was a court challenge to the ETC had originally become the lowest bidder to get the contract again. Remember, this contract should have been done a number of years ago. In 2018 was the end of the 5-year contract, and they pushed it out twice now. But it's become quite a mess from a legal point of view. ETC have now fallen out of favour with SANRAL. They're about to pack up their bags and go. They're trying to resolve the tender so that they can move on with what we believe is another project that's going to enable integrated transport billing and so forth. We think that's nothing wrong with that. You're putting already sunk costs into good use. But the e-toll gantries will not be put to good use. We believe they're going to have to pull the plug because that horse is bolted, that scheme has failed completely.
Did the Premier give any indication of the future of e-toll?
No, he didn't, and we found that quite surprising because he's been very vocal. He's been an opponent of e-tolls for a long time now, since 2014. And this is the first year in ASOPA that he was silent on e-tolls. We believe the power is not in his hands. Every time he has called for the end of e-tolls, nothing has happened. And I think he's being ridiculed by this call ongoingly. It wouldn't have been the wrong call to make again, but he seems ineffective when he makes the call and nothing happens.
Why do you think there hasn't been much mention? We probably didn't expect President Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation, but the Finance Minister, that should have really been a big item.
Exactly. So missing in action at national and provincial level. We think that they're going to bring this closure or the end of this decision to play. They've got no choice in a manner that uplifts government in making the decision for the people, so to speak. We've got local elections down the road. They might want to play into that issue. We can't understand, though, why the decision hasn't been made. But as we've always said, Peter, it doesn't really matter. The decision's been made for them by the public. And, if they're not collecting the money, if they're only collecting 15% of it, well, it's failed. So it doesn't really matter whether they pull the plug officially or not. The society's done that for them.
All right. So as we are where we are right now, the gantries are up there. Are they on? Are they off? What is happening?
They're on. They're ticking away every time a car goes under, but nobody's paying. So I liken that to, it's nice to have a party, but if no one's on the dance floor, it's not really a party, is it? And that's what's happening.
So what's the future?
The future is that those gantries should be put to other use, monitoring stolen vehicles, average distance, speed control, and others. But I think also they should remain in place as a monument to society's effectiveness in challenging irrational government decisions. First of all, but we think they might take them down, or a number of them, because they really are just going to rust away there, serving no real purpose at all. The decision to reverse the e-toll or the declaration of these roads in Gauteng as e-toll roads, that is the formal decision that has to happen. And until then, they'll just remain e-tolled roads where they're not being paid for.
Procurement has always been a vulnerable spot for corruption. Is there, and there's rumours that have been there, that there may have been corruption in this whole e-toll process?
Well, there certainly was corruption when it comes to the road construction process. We paid just under 18 billion rand. Our engineers and evaluation says that 186 kilometre upgrade should not have cost more than 9 billion. So there was corruption there under SANRAL's nose. They're the experts. They could see what was happening. They did nothing. The biggest sin was when SANRAL declared to David Makura and the Gauteng panel right as far as 2014 that ETC had won that contract at 6.4 billion rand, when in actual fact the contract was signed a few years earlier at 9.9 billion rand with ETC. And they didn't tell government that. That is something that says there needs to be an investigation into this, an independent inquiry into what really happened here. And if they do that, they'll find the corruption. We've heard a lot of corruption. We're looking into a matter right now that speaks to 10 million rands worth of potential corruption or a bribery incident that happened. And we have no doubt that this was a corrupt scheme. It was born in sin, and yet government doesn't want to go there and unpack what happened.
How much have we lost? Have you done a calculation with this whole e-toll thing to date? And I guess it's taxpayers at the end that really are footing the bill.
Well, for a scheme that should have cost 9 billion rand without the elaborate e-toll option, because urban roads can be funded through grants from Treasury, had Treasury increased the fuel price by 10 cents, we would have paid for it. And right now, as we sit here, government owes 50 billion rand on those bonds and the interest. So that's been the cost.
Wayne, it's been great talking to you, and we hope to chat to you again soon.
Peter, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you again.